And now I'm older, and I decided to leave.
So tell me about the progression of your addiction as you got older.
Okay. So now alcohol's not working for me basically anymore. So then I start looking around for other drugs, and I find amphetamines. And I remember early on it was like I'd count them in my hand. I said, 1 will make me happy, 2 will make me gay, and 3 will take all my fucking problems away. And I started doing amphetamines, and I thought I'd found heaven. And I quickly built up a tolerance to that. I learned how to write my own prescriptions. I stole prescriptions pads from doctors. I went into the PDR. I figured out what I could do and how I could do it. I copied signatures off these doctors. I did a lot of research in how to get those drugs. And there were certain doctors around at the time that you could, they would, give you what you wanted. And if you knew what to say, then they would give it to you anyways, because they started using it for weight gain back then. But there was Obedrin LA, there was Dexedrine, there was Benzedrine, there was all kinds of stuff on the market. And then what wasn't on the market I could get anyways. There was a drug that I found that was really cheap. It was called the Wyamine. It was a nasal inhaler. And it was loaded with methamphetamine. And I used to cut that up and boil it in some Coca-Cola. And then sometimes I'd chew it. Sometimes I'd take it orally, snort it. But the high was like the best high I ever had. The problem with it was also loaded with camphorphenique, which stunk like terrible, and it would come out of my sweat glands, and I'd walk around smelling like a campo guy. But it was well worth the high at the time. And I'll tell you how bad I was in that. I was caught up in that. I got married, and the progression got worse and worse. I got married. The day I got married, I decided, this is how messed up I was, I decided that I couldn't get married without getting high. So I sent my wife to the church, and we were supposed to get married at 1 o'clock. So I decided that I should go to the doctors first because I can't get married without being high. That wouldn't be right. So I stopped off at the doctor's, and he was late coming in, and I wasn't leaving until I got what I wanted. And of course, that put me an hour late for the wedding. And on the way, I decided, after I got my medicine, I decided that I had to come up with some kind of an idea, an excuse why I was so goddamn late. I mean, who in their right mind is late for their wedding just so they can go out and get some amphetamines? And I knew that was wrong. I knew I had problems really, really early on with this stuff, but I really didn't care. I thought I could handle it. And on the way to the wedding, I just pull over. I had this old junk car, and I think about what kind of excuse I can make, and I open the hood, and I reach in there, and I grab some grease, and I put it all over my tux and my hands, and I go to the wedding, and I tell them, my car broke down, but I'm high as a kite, and my wife's really pissed. She knows. Now, she wants to leave me, but I beg her not to. I say, you can leave me tomorrow, but you can't leave me today. But that's where my addiction brought me. And it got really bad. And then I found out about methamphetamine. And I moved to California back in the early 70s because I heard it was some kind of high. And when I found methamphetamine, I did think I found God. I mean, I'm going to tell you, man, that stuff really turned me on because it took me places where nothing could ever take me before. And I was able to do things that I could never do before. I could think, and I could have energy, and I wasn't depressed and all of that stuff. And I fell into it big time. So, again, I'm in and out of jail. When I can't get the amphetamines, I'm drinking. When I can't do that, I'm leaving my wife. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I got 5 kids, I'm just crazy with insanity, and I'm running, constantly running somewhere to no place. But I found out, the progression was bad. I mean, I stole. I remember when I was 18, I was in the Army. I was on a Sunday, and you couldn't buy booze on a Sunday in North Carolina. So I decided that I wasn't done drinking. So I went into the 7-Eleven store and I stole a bottle of a Wild Irish Rose. I put it under my coat, and as I'm walking out, I bump into a cop. The Wild Irish Rose falls out and breaks down on the thing. I turn around, he puts the cuffs on me, I go to jail. Well, you know what? Even after a few years of recovery, I never owned the responsibility for that. I thought that it was the cop's fault. If it wasn't for the cop hitting me, it would have never happened. Never once did I think or want to own responsibility for my behavior in that action. Actually, I never wanted to own responsibility for any of my behaviors when I was using. Nothing. And in other words, nothing that was my fault. Everything belonged